Some childhoods are marked by obvious trauma, abuse, neglect, chaos, but then there are childhoods that look fine on the surface. There was food, shelter, maybe even love, but something was missing, something invisible but essential. Emotional presence, emotional attunement. The feeling of being truly seen, this is emotional neglect, and it's one of the hardest things to identify because nothing dramatic happened. There are no clear memories of harm, just an absence, a void where emotional support should have been. Today we're exploring 7 signs that you grew up emotionally unseen. And if you recognize yourself in these signs, know that what you experienced was real, even if it felt like nothing. Sign 1. You feel guilty or ashamed when you have needs? Do you struggle to ask for help? Do you feel like a burden when you need something from someone? When you're sick, sad, or struggling, does a part of you feel like you should handle it alone? This guilt around needs often comes from childhood emotional neglect. When a child's emotional needs are consistently dismissed, ignored, or treated as inconvenient, they learn a painful lesson. My needs are too much, I'm too much. So they grow up minimizing their needs, apologizing for having feelings, staying small and self-sufficient. Because asking for anything feels like exposing a shameful flaw. If this resonates with you, it's a sign you weren't given the message that your needs were valid and deserving of care. Sign 2. You struggle to identify or name your emotions. Someone asks how you're feeling and you freeze. You don't know. You say fine because you genuinely can't access what's happening inside you, or you feel something but can't put words to it. This is called alexithymia, and it often develops in emotionally neglectful environments. When caregivers don't help a child understand their emotions, don't reflect feelings back to them, don't say things like you seem frustrated or you look sad, the child never learns emotional vocabulary. They grow up disconnected from their inner world, feeling things but not understanding them, knowing something is wrong but unable to articulate what. This isn't a personal failing, it's a skill you were never taught. Sign 3. You often feel empty, numb, or like something is missing. There's a vague sense of dissatisfaction or hollowness that you can't quite explain. You're functioning, you have a life, but something feels off, like you're going through the motions without really feeling alive. This emptiness is often the signature of emotional neglect. When a child's emotional world isn't nurtured, when feelings aren't acknowledged or validated, they learn to shut down emotionally, to disconnect from their inner experience because no one else is connecting to it. And that disconnection carries into adulthood. You're not depressed in the clinical sense, you're just not fully present with yourself, not fully alive in your own experience, and you don't know why. Sign 4. Deep emotional intimacy makes you uncomfortable. You want connection, but when someone gets too close, when they want to know how you really feel, when they try to see the vulnerable parts of you, you shut down. You pull away, you change the subject. Or you stay in relationships that are surface level because deep intimacy feels too exposing, too scary. This fear often comes from never experiencing safe emotional intimacy as a child. If your caregivers didn't create space for your feelings, didn't respond to your emotional cues, you learned that being emotionally vulnerable isn't safe. That showing your inner world leads to nothing, or worse, to rejection. So you protect yourself by keeping people at arm's length, even when you desperately want to be known. Sign 5. You're extremely hard on yourself. Your inner voice is critical, harsh, unforgiving. You make a small mistake and you berate yourself. You don't meet your own expectations and you feel like a failure. You compare yourself to others constantly and always come up short. This harsh self-judgment often stems from emotional neglect. When a child's feelings and struggles aren't met with compassion, when they're told to toughen up or stop being sensitive, they internalize that harshness. They become their own critical parent. The voice that should be soothing and supportive becomes the voice that attacks, and you grow up believing you're never good enough, that you have to be perfect to be worthy of love. because unconditional acceptance was never modeled for you. Sign 6. You feel fundamentally different from other people. Like everyone else got a manual for life that you didn't receive. You watch others navigate emotions, relationships, and life with apparent ease while you struggle. You feel like you're on the outside looking in, even when you're surrounded by people. This sense of being different or broken is common among people who experience emotional neglect because you grew up without the emotional scaffolding that others had. You didn't learn how to process feelings, how to self-soothe, how to connect authentically. So you developed your own coping mechanisms, your own ways of surviving. And those mechanisms, while they helped you survive, make you feel like you're playing a different game than everyone else. Sign 7. You're extremely independent to the point of isolation. You pride yourself on not needing anyone. You handle everything alone. You don't ask for help. You don't share your struggles. And you genuinely believe this is strength. But underneath that independence is often a deep wound from emotional neglect. When a child reaches out emotionally and no one responds, they learn not to reach out. They learn that they're on their own, that needing people is pointless or dangerous. So they become self-sufficient. They build walls and call them boundaries. They isolate and call it independence. And they miss out on the connection and support that humans need because they learned early that reaching out doesn't work. If you recognize yourself in these signs, you might be wondering, was I really neglected? My parents weren't abusive. They provided for me. They loved me. And that's the confusing part about emotional neglect. It's not about what happened. It's about what didn't happen. It's the absence of emotional attunement, validation, and support. Your parents may have done their best. They may have loved you deeply. But if they didn't have the emotional tools to see you, to respond to your feelings, to help you understand your inner world, you experienced emotional neglect. And that has real, lasting effects. It's not your fault, and it's not necessarily anyone's fault, but it's real, and it shaped you. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, validate your own experience. Stop minimizing it. Stop saying it wasn't that bad, or others had it worse. Your pain is real even if your childhood looked fine from the outside. Second, start building the skills you didn't learn as a child. Learn to identify and name your emotions. Practice self-compassion instead of self-criticism. Allow yourself to need people and practice asking for help. Third, consider therapy, especially with someone who understands childhood emotional neglect. You didn't get the emotional foundation you needed as a child, but you can build it now as an adult. It's hard work. It requires reparenting yourself, but it's possible. Growing up emotionally unseen leaves invisible wounds. You function, you achieve, you look fine on the outside, but inside there's a child who was never fully seen, never fully known, never fully held in their emotional experience. That child is still there, still waiting to be acknowledged. If you saw yourself in these 7 signs, know that you're not broken. You're not too much or too sensitive. You're a person who didn't receive the emotional nourishment you needed, and you're doing your best with what you were given. But you don't have to keep living this way. You can learn to see yourself, to validate your own feelings, to give yourself the emotional presence you never received. Healing is possible. Being fully alive in your emotional world is possible. And you deserve that. You always did.